It's time for your Low Country Real Estate Market Update. It's the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Brian is one of the top 1% real estate agents in Charleston. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. Now, broadcasting from the WTMA studios, here's your host, Brian Beatty.
Good morning, Charleston. Welcome to another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. I'm your host, Brian Beatty. So much to talk about over the next hour as we are now in February. We talked last episode about the impact Biden is going to have on the housing market. Had a lot of great feedback on that. Thank you for that. I want to talk this week about really what you need to know and how you can, as a buyer, position yourself to really win the deal if you're in a multiple offer situation, how you can prepare for buying a home in a seller's market. A few other tips and tricks along the way. We're going to talk, of course, as well about selling a home, some of the things that you should know. Certainly a lot easier to get a home under contract in a market like this. But what about the closing process? That's giving a lot of people some challenges. So I'm going to talk through some of that and a few other things along the way. Now, if you want to reach out to me, you're thinking about buying, selling, or investing in real estate this year, and you want to have a private conversation with me, of course, my team and I sell real estate Monday through Sunday when I'm not doing this show. We've done almost a deal a day so far this year. So the market's incredibly hot. Things are working very well. And, although the inventory is essentially at an all-time low, we're navigating it. We're figuring ways around it. We're working really hard behind the scenes to provide people with opportunity that's not on the market right now. We're going to talk more about that process here in just a little bit. But if you want to reach out to me and just have a chat, whether it's something you're thinking about doing, you're ready now, anything in between, happy to help. My number is 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009. Or you can visit us online, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. You can learn more about myself and my team and who we are, what we do, what we sell, how we sell it, all that great stuff, our incentives. Find out how much your home is worth. We've got a great for sale by owner program you might want to know more about. You can listen to the radio show, all that and more, listingsincharleston.com. So let's start first with talking about buying a home in a extreme seller's market, which is really what we're in. We've got about a month and a half supply of inventory, which is just incredibly low. Every morning when I log into the MLS and I, look at properties and just, do everything that I do as a real estate agent, which involves me analyzing the market and looking for opportunities and so on and so forth, I just see the number of available properties for sale go down and down and down and down and down. And I remember when we first got into the pandemic, we were watching these numbers on a weekly basis. We were looking at the extreme shortage of properties over, sometimes just a week or two. People didn't want to put their home on the market for obvious health reasons, obvious reasons with regard to concerns about the viability of the market. What was going to happen? We're going to sit around and wait and watch was a story that we heard a lot. And, that some people call that an objection. In sales, you've got objections you have to deal with. It's not really an objection that you can overcome, right? If somebody has concerns, either health related or financially, as it relates to a pandemic, there's only so much a real estate agent can say or do. We're not here to change your mind or motivate you to do something you don't want to do. We're here to provide you with information. We're here to set realistic expectations about what's going to happen if you decide to buy, sell, or invest right now. Let me give you an idea of what that looks like. Is the how we frame that. So if you're a buyer, you're in a market right now, and you look online, and there's just next to nothing available, and every time something does hit the market, it's gone in a few days. There are a few things that you can do to really prepare yourself, I think, to be as strong a buyer as you can possibly be in the eyes of a seller. Because what sellers are going to do more often than not is they're going to have that property hit the market, and if it's priced well, and if it's in good condition and it's marketed well, then that seller will likely sit on that property for a few days, meaning they're going to let showings roll in, they're going to let offers roll in, and they're going to say, all right, well, at such and such a date and at such and such a time, we're going to review all the offers that we receive. They've got this preconceived notion that they're going to receive multiple offers on their property, and in many instances, they do. And so as a buyer, how can you prepare yourself for the process, still feel like you're getting at least somewhat of a good deal in a market where prices are continuously going up, and you've got bidding wars, and frankly, buyers sometimes doing some pretty stupid things to buy a house. I don't mind saying it. We've seen plenty of people pay way more for a property than we thought a buyer was going to, but that's kind of what happens in a market like this, and that's what I've been explaining to folks, not just on my team and our clients, but other agents, not just here, but across the country. I also coach other real estate company owners in New York and California and Texas, all over the place. And the market's the same here as it is there and pretty much everywhere, which is that there's an extreme supply of shortage of inventory. So when those offers are made, they're going to look at the terms, they're going to look at the price, they're going to sit on it a day or two, sometimes a little bit more. They're going to leverage your offer to get other offers. But before that happens, how can we be an offer that they take seriously? Can we do anything to nudge that seller and get them to agree to our contract now? Well, yes, there are some ways of doing that, but before that happens, let's talk about some steps that you can take to position yourself to really take advantage of everything that this market has to offer. The silver lining, of course, is interest rates. The fact that borrowing money is incredibly inexpensive. I've seen interest rates below 2.5%. Saw one for 2.25%. I was amazed. It's essentially free money. And so the first step that I'm going to tell you to do here kind of goes against the grain, especially when it comes to sales. I guess I'll just say it that way. Because if you think about it, we relate to consumers the way that somebody would go into a dealership looking to buy a new car. So just think about the comparison for a moment, if you will. When you go to a dealership and you pull up in your car, more often than not, somebody walks out from the showroom and greets you and says, "Hi, can I help you today? Would you like to look at anything?" Blah, blah, blah. They make their introduction. Then they walk you over to the car. You start looking at some cars, talking through it. And then they say, "Hey, would you like to take it for a spin?" How would you feel if you walked into a dealership and the first thing that salesman did was, "Hey, you know what? Before we get started on any of this, why don't you come into my office and sit down with my finance manager? Why don't we just go ahead and pull your credit and talk about financing? And then if everything works out, then yeah, sure, we can show you some cars." You'd probably just go to another dealership, right? Because that's insane. Nobody's going to do that. But for some reason, real estate agents have this idea that as soon as they talk to somebody, one of the things that they think people want is to get pre-approved for a mortgage. They collect all the information from the buyer about what they're looking for: bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, locations, price range, important features about the home, about the area in which they're going to live, so on and so forth. They say, "Great, hey, I'm going to set you up with a search, and each time a new property hits the market, I'm going to send you an email. So if you ever see anything you like, just let me know, and we'll go and we'll take a look at it. And oh, by the way, have you been pre-approved for a mortgage?" Most buyers say no. Okay, great. Well, I'll tell you what, before we go and we start looking at properties, why don't you go ahead and have that conversation with that lender? That way we're shopping with confidence, quote unquote. Agents love to say that, shopping with confidence. And I think it's a turnoff for buyers. I mean, I know it's a turnoff. They've told us as much. We try not to do that. But on the other hand, in a market that very heavily favors the sellers, we want our buyers, for their own benefit, to qualify for the lowest mortgage rate they possibly can. So we don't insist, but we encourage people to have those conversations with lenders sooner rather than later. You really want to get the best interest rate possible. So take time to boost your credit score. Pay down debts, settle any overdue accounts, alert credit bureaus of any errors or any issues that are on your credit report that aren't supposed to be there. I'll tell you, it happens way more often than you would think that someone has some sort of issue or blip on their credit that's not supposed to be there, or that they haven't taken the time to address. Maybe they don't even know how to address it. They may not even have checked their credit score in years. And if you wait too long, in other words, if you wait until you just find the right house and then you say, "Okay, great, well, yeah, it shouldn't be a problem. I'll go and I'll get pre-approved." And then one of those issues is on your credit report, those things can take 30, 60, 90 days to clear, and you potentially lose the house that you're interested in because you now have to wait. And of course, it's the decision as to, well, do I just pay for a higher interest rate because in the eyes of the lender, I'm higher risk because of my credit score, or do I go ahead and take care of this and then start shopping? Which obviously goes hand in hand with getting pre-approved for a mortgage. You've got the pre-qualification, the pre-approval, and an approval. Really what we're after here when we're working with buyers that are getting a mortgage is that I want that buyer to be communicating with that lender and that lender's underwriting department. I want to go ahead and collect tax returns and pay stubs and bank statements and go ahead and go through the process with the lender. We're not doing that selfishly so that we know that a deal's going to close. We're doing that for the buyer's benefit so that when we present an offer, we have a letter that says, hey, these buyers are approved for financing. There's no doubt they can get a mortgage. The only two things that need to occur are that you ratify a contract on a home and that home appraises for the purchase price or more, which is a contingency to the contract. And something that we'll talk about in just a little bit. We haven't seen very many appraisal issues, but it would make sense that you'd be seeing them right now given the fact that prices are going up so high and that gap between what a property is worth and what a buyer is willing to pay gets wider as we get further and further into a seller's market. So qualifying for the lowest mortgage rate you possibly can by reviewing your credit, paying down debts, settling any overdue accounts, alerting credit bureaus of any errors on your credit report. It's a really important step. I know it's not a fun part of the process, but it's an important part of the process, and it's for your benefit financially. So stick around. I've got a few more tips for you if you're thinking about buying a house in this market. Then, of course, we'll switch over to the seller side here in just a little while. Again, if you'd like to reach out to me, you're thinking about buying a home, selling a home, investing in real estate, we'd love to talk with you about that. My number is 843-400-8009. That's my cell, so you can call or text that number, 843-400-8009, or visit us online, listingsincharleston.com. Stick around, folks, for more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show right here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
Hear the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show every Saturday morning at 9 and each Sunday morning at 10 on 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
1250 WTMA.
Now, the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues on Charleston's Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, folks, as the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. We're talking about buying a house in a seller's market. It's a challenge, I'll be honest. It's not a walk in the park. There are plenty of instances in which you're competing with other buyers for the same property. You guys have all seen it if you've been online and looked around, that something that hit the market a day or two ago is already under contract. In many areas of Charleston, the median days on market is a week to 2 weeks. So how do you as a buyer still feel like you're getting something out of this process other than just a house that you have to pay top dollar for? We certainly don't want folks feeling like they're just giving away everything just to own a home with a low interest rate. That doesn't feel very good. So what are some things that we can do to kind of increase the likelihood of you getting a better deal? One of the ways, so we talked about improving your credit score and then getting approved for a mortgage so that by the time you write an offer, you can tell them, hey, we're not like these other buyers that are getting mortgages. We've already been through the underwriting process. We are approved for a mortgage. You have confidence in us and our ability to get financing. You don't have to worry about something happening and that deal falling through because, as it turns out, we can't get a mortgage. We've already been through that. And that's a very powerful thing to be able to say to a seller. So what are some other things that we can do for buyers right now that I think make a big difference? And I think one of them is finding deals that are not on the market right now. Every year, we sell about a few dozen homes in which the buyer says, this is what I'm looking for. Of course, we give them access to everything that's available on the market, which I guess really is the first step. If you're looking around right now on Zillow or Realtor.com or some of these other websites, please understand that the data is old by the time it makes it to those websites. The only way to get an instantaneous update on what's available for sale is through the MLS. The MLS feeds all of those other websites. So that can only come from a real estate agent. So having that simple conversation with a real estate agent about, hey, here's what I'm looking for, bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, price range, location, so on and so forth, they can create a search for you in the MLS, and then each time a new property hits the market or an existing property drops their price or makes some sort of change, then you as a buyer receive an alert. And that's great. That's all well and good. And frankly, for a lot of agents, that's kind of where things stop for them. They've set you up with the search. They have now kind of they've passed the buck back to you to say, okay, well, it's up to you now. You have to tell me what you like and when you want to go see something. And obviously for a lot of buyers, they don't like that. If you're a buyer, you want your agent saying, hey, this new property just hit the market. It's, I think, perfect. Can you come and see it, this morning or take a break for lunch and come and see the property? And when we do that, we help buyers understand, hey, we're not doing this to be pushy. We're not trying to be pushy salespeople. We're just understanding of the fact that these properties that are priced well, that are in good condition, that are marketed well, they're going to sell pretty quickly. So let's try and be first in line. But before that happens, and to reduce the amount of competition that buyers face, we do employ several people on my team. I've got 25 people on my real estate team, and 4 of them do not sell real estate. They just communicate with buyers and sellers on behalf of our clients. So like as an example, which I mentioned just a minute ago, a few dozen times a year, a buyer will communicate with us what they're looking for, and then we will go into the market and find it for them. They're honed in on a specific neighborhood. Well, we can look through tax data and we can look at all the information that they have available, compile a list in literally just a few minutes, upload that into another piece of software that allows us to use 3 phone lines at once, not to get too techie and nerdy, but hey, I'm a techie, nerdy guy. We use a lot of it. We use it to our advantage to increase our efficiency and productivity and ultimately sales and benefits to our clients. So what we'll do is we'll highlight these particular neighborhoods, and then there's nothing really, it's simple. We just call people. We just call people and we ask them if they would consider selling their home if we presented them with a fair offer from a qualified buyer. And at least 24 times a year, we find people that would entertain selling their property. We've kind of caught them right at the right time. They're thinking about selling. They're kind of in the aspirational / research phase of selling a home. They're not necessarily ready to do a transaction, but if you catch them right at the right time, they'll say, if you've got a buyer, we were thinking about selling it here in a few months anyways. Why don't you have them come by and let's see if we can work something out. And, about twice a month, that happens for our clients. It's my favorite thing that we do, because it really, I think, is just a testament to the fact that we're willing to do what it takes to flip over every rock possible to find a seller for our buyers. And in a market where there's hardly anything available for sale, that becomes really, really important. That's something that you should be insistent upon, in my opinion, if you're a buyer in this market, because anybody can just tell you to, hey, go look at Zillow and tell me what you like, and then I'll show it to you. They're a glorified door opener at that point. You want somebody that has the ability to go into the market in a very targeted way, effective way, and bring you opportunities that other people don't know about. That's one of the ways that you as a buyer win. Now, the other function of this is the ability to, highly target people through online behavior, demographics, and real estate interest. We do this a lot for our sellers. It produces a ton of buyer interest on our listings because it allows our system that we've spent, 2.5 years on and a few $100,000 realistically building this out. The learning curve on it was steep, but now that we've got it and we've had it for a long time now, it's amazing the ability for us to talk to a buyer and say, tell us what you're looking for, and then just go and look in our database to see, hey, who are the sellers that we're communicating with that have said they would sell that are in areas that buyer's looking in and see if we can just play matchmaker, see if we can find a seller for our buyer and vice versa. Now, obviously, when you're marketing a seller listing, it's a little easier to connect those dots because we can go into the market and, through social media, we can target specific demographics. We can attach a real estate interest to that demographic. We can look at online behaviors of those particular folks that lead us to believe whether they're preparing for a move or not. Like as an example, I'll give you a great example. Let's say that we're marketing a home in a family-friendly neighborhood. And, we ask the seller, hey, who do you think the buyer for this home would be? Tell me about the composition of the neighborhood. Obviously, we have our own opinions on that as well, but we're just engaging the seller, we're chatting. They say, it's a great family neighborhood. A lot of families in here. Well, we have the ability to kind of determine the demographic profile of a buyer that would have kids. They have certain, online characteristics that are fairly similar. So we can look at that group of folks that have kids, that have been online, that have looked at homes for sale in their area, and we can attach a real estate interest to it. So like as an example, what's something that, a buyer that has, kids would do online that might lead you to believe they're getting ready to make a move? Well, one of those things could be something like, who has researched schools in this zip code in which that search originated from a different zip code? When was the last time you researched schools in a different area, unless you were considering moving there? So that's just a very small example of hundreds that I could give of the type of ways in which we can cater to people and proactively target people and communicate with them to bring them to our specific listing, which then drives them to a website and is full of, information on the property, which has a lead capture on it. And if they don't register, then, we retarget them. This for some folks might be going in one ear and out the other, and I realize that. But I'll tell you that our ability to answer the question that people have, which is, how are you either going to find buyers for my home, or how are you going to find us listings that are not currently on the market? We have a solution for that. We have a very specific way of doing that. And some of the things that I've mentioned are just one of a few things that we can do to identify people that would be interested in selling their home before it's been made publicly available for sale. So if you're thinking about buying a home, or if you're thinking about selling a home, communicate with a real estate agent that has a database, first and foremost, but then secondly, has a way of communicating with that database. It'd be one thing to just have this big database full of everybody that I've ever talked to since I got my license, almost 16 years ago. But it's something else entirely different to be able to look at that group of people and say, if my buyer is looking in this area and in this price range and has these parameters that they're searching within, who within my database is a match for that? We have the ability to do that. And I know that sounds fairly simple, but I'm here to tell you, I would be willing to bet that 99.9% of real estate agents do not have the ability to sort through their database, which their database is their business, to find those people, to play that role of matchmaker. So in a market like this, when inventory is incredibly low, you as a buyer want opportunities that other people aren't aware of, or you as a seller want to be able to talk to that real estate agent and say, hey, is there a way for you to just bring me a buyer without me having to go through the process of putting it on the market? Can you just get a deal done for me without having to, succumb to that process? The answer is yes. And if you want to learn more about how we do that, I'm not going to obviously share all those details on air here, but I'd love to have that conversation with you. We'll tell you exactly how we do it. We'll show you how we do it. Never tell someone something you can show them is a saying of mine. So if that's something you're interested in, let's chat. I'll walk you through the process. My number is 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009. Or check us out online, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Stick around, folks, for more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
More stimulating talk on real estate matters with Brian Beatty next on 1250 WTMA. 1250 WTMA. Expert news and views on the Low Country real estate scene. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, folks, as the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. I always like to take just a quick moment and say thank you to those of you that listen to this program and rely on the information within it. It's my pleasure being on this station and talking about real estate. Obviously, it's a passion of mine. For those that have listened to me over the course of the past 8 years that I've been on this program, I hope that shines through. And, of course, I'm here to help. You know, it doesn't always have to be, hey, I want to buy, sell, or invest in real estate. Maybe you just have a question. Maybe you just like to learn more about something. Maybe you're thinking about getting into real estate yourself. We're on a hiring spree because we've got the business, the capacity for it, and we'd love to chat with you about that as well. But really, any question you have, either very complicated in nature or just a simple question, we're here for you. I'm happy to answer. And my personal cell phone is 843-400-8009. 400-8009. Feel free to give me a buzz or send me a text. I'm happy to answer any question you guys have. And of course, listingsincharleston.com is our website, listingsincharleston.com. There's a ton of great resources on there. You might want to check that out, listingsincharleston.com. So I want to finish this discussion about, being a buyer in a seller's market, what we can do to strengthen your position really at all different points along the way. So we've talked about qualifying for the lowest possible interest rate by boosting your credit score, taking a look at that sooner rather than later. I know that's not a very sexy part of the process. I get that, but it's important. And if you have something on your credit report that you're unaware of, it's going to ding your credit. It's going to cost you in the long run. So better to just have somebody take a glance at that. If there are issues, then we've got great lender partners on my team that can coach you through that, tell you what to do to boost your score. We've talked about going through the qualification process and actually getting approved for a mortgage before you even find a property. Lenders, not a lot of people know this, but lenders can do that. They can underwrite your loan and say, hey, great news, you are approved for a mortgage. All you have to do is go and find the right property, so long as it's within these parameters, and then make sure that property appraises for the purchase price or more. Just a standard appraisal contingency. And then we talked about, how do we identify properties that other people don't know about? How can we get a leg up on all of that competition that's out there in the form of other buyers shopping for the same things? So we talked about off-market deals. We talked about, our ability to sort through our database, which, by the way, has about 240,000 people in it. So that we can see, hey, if you're thinking about buying a home in this area, in this price range with these specifics, let's look to see who we have right now that might be interested in selling their home to you. And of course, on the flip side, when we take a listing, one of the first things we do is we look at our database of buyers, because we get about 500 or so people that come to our website every month and register. And so the great thing about that is that I can put a listing on the market, do a reverse search within my own database, and say, here are all the people that have been on my website in the past 6 months that have looked at properties similar to yours. That is one of our target markets. It just makes sense that we would call those people and say, hey, we're about to put a property on the market. You were previously on our site. Here's what this property looks like. Are you interested? It works. It's not magic. The system that we've created and the tech behind it is, I'd say, pretty cutting edge. I don't know of anybody else doing it the way we're doing it. I'm sure people will catch up, but as soon as they do, then we'll be off to something else to stay ahead of the pack. But anyways, let's talk about making the offer. How can we strengthen our offer so that the seller gives it serious consideration? So first step is, I know buyers, let's say that there's a few different scenarios here. So number one, let's say a new property hits the market. It's well priced. It's in good condition. Nice photos, marketed well. We're pretty sure it's going to sell in a few days. It's probably going to be a multiple offer situation. Most buyers really have a tough time with making a strong first offer rather than making an offer that's decent, but is almost always going to get countered by the seller. One of the ways that we're winning right now is by kind of skipping the line a little bit and just saying, let's make an offer that if the seller accepted it, you'd be happy with that. Let's skip this back and forth, because what's going to happen during the back and forth between the counter and you countering their counter is other people are seeing the property, other people are potentially making offers, and then you're going to get that email from the listing agent that says, we are now in a multiple offer situation. You have to submit your highest and best offer by 5 p.m. today, and then at 9 a.m. tomorrow, we're going to choose one party to either accept or negotiate further with. Which just means that, hey, now you're not going to be able to see what the seller wants to do with your offer at all. You're just competing against yourself and the other buyers to see how strong you can actually make the offer. So my suggestion is, before you get into that multiple offer situation, make them a reasonable, fairly strong offer that the seller should accept. Obviously, if you absolutely love it, there are plenty of times where we have advised them to pay full price if the property is priced correctly. If it's priced at what it's worth and you want to buy it in a market like this, the likelihood of you buying something for significantly less than what it's worth is very challenging. I'm not going to say non-existent, because it happens, because you never know what that seller's situation might be. But I think, first step is make a good first offer. Within that offer, there are a few things that we can look at. Strengthening the offer by offering a little bit more earnest money than normal. If the contract's written correctly and you as a buyer have some safety nets in the form of contingencies, then you're going to get your earnest money back. But, some buyers out there, even on a $400,000, $500,000 house, are offering $1,000 in earnest money. And that's, industry standard is about 1% of the purchase price. So let's look at earnest money and see if we can strengthen it that way. Put a little more buy-in into the deal to show them that you're serious. You can also look at some specific contingencies and shorten dates on that, like saying, hey, just give me a week to do a home inspection. We still have contracts that roll in where buyers want a month to do what we call due diligence. And the weird thing about the real estate contract, at least in South Carolina, and I'm going to get just a little technical for a moment, but I think it's important that you know this. In South Carolina, our real estate contract, when it comes to the inspection, it has two different options. So it has three different options. Option number one is something called repair procedure. And under repair procedure, it just says, hey, you're going to do a home inspection, and you're going to do that by such and such a date, and you're going to deliver a repair request by such and such a date. And these are the things that you can request. And it's a very kind of boilerplate list of things that you can request the seller to fix. Basically, roof has to be free of leaks, can't have any holes in the windows, all the major mechanicals within the home have to be working, HVAC, structural issues have to be addressed, environmental concerns have to be addressed, can't be any termite or moisture-related issues. But it does not include things like home maintenance. It does not include things like fogged windows. It does not include things like you bringing that house up to code. Like on almost every home that we sell, we see that the buyer wants us to update the electrical so that there are GFCI outlets throughout the kitchens and bathrooms and outside and in the garage and blah, blah, blah. You as a seller are not required to upgrade your home to meet current code requirements when you sell it, at least in that specific version of the contract, which is repair procedure. So in repair procedure, there are items that are defined as seller paid repairs, which are just the very kind of like stock things that you can ask a seller to fix, the major components of the house. And in that contract, it says that if the seller fixes those major things, then the buyer has to move forward with the purchase. The other side of that is something called due diligence, which just says, hey, I've got some predetermined amount of time to investigate whatever I want about this property. And I can also get out of this contract for whatever reason I want. I could wake up tomorrow and say that I don't like the paint color and cancel this deal. So obviously in a seller's market, sellers that receive a due diligence-based offer don't really have a lot of comfort and knowing that that deal is going to close if there's some predetermined amount of time where the buyer can essentially walk for whatever reason. And of course, the third option is as is, and not many people are doing that unless they're really getting a fantastic deal on something, which again, few and far between. It's really used mostly by investors. So looking at some of those contingencies, do we really need a home warranty? Or is that something that you're comfortable paying a few $100s outside of closing to get for yourself? Or maybe we use that in negotiations once the initial contract is accepted, and then we do our home inspection. And that, I think, is the key for buyers right now is, writing a contract that looks good enough and clean enough to get accepted by the seller, and then doing everything you can within the confines of the contract to try and win some of that ground back through negotiations in the form of repairs. So there is a dance, so to speak, to purchasing property in this kind of market. And I'm just here to tell you, working with an experienced agent, one that knows how to problem solve, one that has been through these scenarios dozens, hundreds of times. We've sold over 1,200 homes here in Charleston. We know a thing or two about the process. I'm telling you, working with an experienced agent can make all the difference. I can't tell you the number of times, more often than not, I see fairly major errors in real estate contracts that if I don't take the time to address and fix, could have meant major issues for my seller. There's this trend in, I guess one of the great things about real estate is that you can literally put almost anything into a contract, and so long as both parties agree to it, then it is what it is. But the challenge that comes along with that is that we have all these real estate agents that think they're attorneys that try to write up all this language into a contract, and they're written poorly. They're written with ambiguous language. One of the ones that we used to see all the time is contingent upon the buyer's satisfaction with the home inspection. Or contingent upon buyer's satisfaction with repairs. Well, if at any point in time the buyer says that they're not satisfied, then what do you as a seller do about that? What ground do you have to stand on to say, well, wait a minute, why are you not satisfied? Yes, you are. You are satisfied. It just creates this big war that you can't win. And it locks up earnest money and it locks up deals, and it gets agents into some serious hot water. So not just having an experienced agent that's been through the process and can know how to navigate it for you, but one that has seen those issues, that has gone past those issues, and helps prevent those things from happening to you is just really important. So we're going to take a break. We're going to come back for one more segment. If you guys want to reach out to me, again, you have questions, comments, or interest in buying, selling, or investing in real estate, I'd love to chat with you. My personal number is 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009. Or check us out online, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Stick around for the last few minutes of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
Have a real estate question? Ask Brian Beatty. Send him an email, lowcountryhomesales@gmail.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show is on 1250 WTMA. 1250 WTMA. Now, here's more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, folks, to the last few minutes of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. So I want to finish my discussion on just what to expect when you're going to buy or sell a home in this market right now. Inventory is under 2,000 properties in the Tri-County area, lowest I've ever seen it, and it just keeps going down. It's been pretty incredible to watch. I didn't think we were going to get to this point, truth be told, with this few homes available for sale. But here we are. We're navigating it the best we can. The market is just absolutely on fire right now. Our team's basically sold a home a day so far this year, and we're helping a lot of folks by finding them deals and navigate them through the process without kind of just throwing them into the same group that everybody else is in. And by that, I mean, we are taking time to find off-market properties for our buyers. We are taking time to identify people that we've already communicated with or that other agents have already communicated with and just bring those people straight to listings before we kind of subject them to the whole process of having a bunch of people walk through their house. I mean, there are still very real health and safety related issues with regard to selling real estate during the pandemic. We take that very seriously. But what I want to talk about for these last few minutes, because we just ended on something incredibly important, which is the experience of the agent that you choose to work with, specifically as it relates to contracts. The even experienced agents, I just see making a lot of mistakes on contracts. And if they're not addressed and if they're not dealt with and frankly corrected, then it can mean very bad things for you, the client, because you're the one that signs it. Obviously, it can mean some bad things for the real estate agent too in the form of negligence. But this is especially important when it comes to the situation that the majority of people are in right now, which is that they want to buy something, but they have to sell their home first. Home sale contingencies. This is where if the agent doesn't know what they're doing, they don't have a few tricks up their sleeve, you can get caught in a pretty bad situation as either a buyer or a seller. And so with the few minutes we have left, I don't have time to go through, a bunch of different examples and scenarios, but what I'll tell you is this. If you're trying to buy a new property and you need to sell your home first, the obvious contingency is that the purchase of the home is going to be contingent upon you selling your home. And so you've got a few different scenarios here, right? You make an offer on something and your home isn't listed for sale yet. You make an offer on something and your home is listed for sale, but it's not under contract yet. Or, of course, you make an offer and your home is already under contract. So working kind of in reverse order, if you think about the offer that's made to a seller in a very seller-driven market and the buyer's property is not listed for sale yet, the likelihood of that offer being accepted, unless it's a very strong offer, is fairly low. So what we encourage sellers to do is to go ahead and put their home on the market and then just create a contingency that says, hey, if you make an offer on my home, that's great because it strengthens my position when I go and I make an offer on something that's contingent upon me selling my house. I've already got a contract, so that's great. But the fear, of course, is that sellers are going to accept an offer on their home but have nowhere to go, And I will very proudly say that in my 16 years of selling real estate, I have not made anybody homeless yet. We've never put the cart before the horse. We've always had a plan. And one of those plans can include a contingency that is kind of the opposite of the home sale contingency. It's a home buy contingency. So somebody makes an offer on your home. You haven't found a replacement home yet. So you just put in a contingency that says you have to give me, let's call it 14 days to find a suitable replacement property. And then once I do, then we can start the process of doing inspections and you getting financing and an appraisal and all that stuff. But if within 14 days or whatever that time frame is, I can't find a suitable replacement property, I can't sell my home and just be homeless. So we would have the ability to cancel that contract within 14 days. I'm just not seeing people do that. I know it's a little outside the box, but it's not that outside the box. But that's a huge help, a huge leg up for people that are making offers contingent upon their home selling. Let's first get it visible. Let's at least show the seller on the other side, the home you're trying to buy, that we're serious about this. We're taking steps to sell. We will be moving. We'd like to move into your house. You can also create some deadlines within those contracts to say, hey, I'll put my home on the market within, such and such an amount of time. If it doesn't receive an offer within, let's call it 3 weeks, then I'm going to adjust the price downward X percentage amount. You can create all these little things within the contract, again, which is the great thing about selling real estate, but also sometimes a huge hazard in that you can put all types of stuff into contracts, but if it's not written properly and those agents don't have experience doing those things, they can start to get their clients into really big trouble. So you can create deadlines to say, hey, I'm going to put my home on the market within this amount of time. And if I don't receive an offer within this amount of time, then I'm going to reduce the price or I'm going to do something. And if I can't sell it within such and such a period of time, then, we can cancel the deal. So all these different ways of working things around. If you're thinking about selling a home and buying another, please give me a call. I'll walk you through that process. 843-400-8009, 843-400-8009, or check us out online, listingsincharleston.com, listingsincharleston.com. You guys have a great weekend, and thanks for listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show next Saturday morning at 9 and Sunday morning at 10. Contact Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. 843-345-1273.